Here I am with Faraz Kahn from fullyvital.com, and today we're talking about turn back the clock on hair thinning and graying with a science-backed approach. And so, Faraz, great to connect with you. And let's start by looking at the primary reasons behind hair thinning.
Yeah, Dr. Jockers, thank you first of all for having me on. Big fan of you and your work. And so the primary reason behind hair thinning for both men and women happens to be hormonal. So what happens for men is in after puberty, men go through a huge surge in testosterone levels. That testosterone converts to dihydrotestosterone or DHT, which then attacks or shrinks the hair follicles. It causes your hair follicles to get thinner and thinner over time, and they also spend more time in the resting phase as opposed to in the growing phase. The same thing happens to women, but later on in life. And so once women's hormones start changing in their mid 30s to 40s, starting with perimenopause, going into menopause and beyond, you see a relative imbalance as as women's estrogen and estrogen and progesterone levels start to fall. That leads to a relative imbalance with testosterone. That converts to DHT, and the same thing happens. Shrinkage of the hair follicles, getting thinner, and then diffuse hair loss along the top with the Christmas tree pattern. And that just leads to thinning over time. And the challenge with hormonal hair loss, which is the number one root cause, as I said, is that over time it can become permanent. So you want to address that as quickly as possible. With women, unfortunately, there's a multitude of reasons behind hair thinning, much more so than men. For men, it's pretty cut and dry for the most part. Of course, there's other reasons as well for men, but for women, it's typically multifactorial. But having said that, the number one root cause that we have to watch out for in female hair loss is female pattern hair thinning, which is caused by DHT.
And what is it about DHT? Does it not activate the hair follicle? Is it highly reactive? Does it drive up oxidative stress and inflammation? What is kind of the mechanism for why DHT ends up leading to hair thinning?
Yeah, this is the $100 million question, Dr. Jockers. Scientists haven't been able to figure this out. Interestingly, DHT on your body helps grow more hair. But the moment DHT goes to your scalp, it thins your hair, which is the exact opposite thing.
Right.
For men, it increases your beard growth right on your face, but then like 5 inches above, it causes hair thinning. And so this is the big question that science has not been able to solve. But what we do know is that once DHT gets attached to the androgen receptors in your scalp, it starts to starve them, it starts to shrink them. So that is why in men and in women, you see the hair follicle actually getting thinner and thinner and thinner. And then it gets wispier over time, and it gets so thin and so small that it can't even penetrate and can't even grow anymore. And a few years of being in that dormant state, luckily you still have a few years. After that of being in dormant state, it just kind of shuts down. And then that's why you see men walking around bald, because it's gone. And women, for women, luckily, they never get full hair loss in any one area. It's more diffuse, even though it's hormonal. It can happen along the part in the top, but it's more diffuse. And that's the beauty for a woman, is that you can do something, you have a longer time frame as opposed to just being gone completely.
Yeah, and women are obviously more concerned about it typically than men. Although, of course, especially for men, if we're losing hair at a young age, I would imagine I never had that experience, but I would imagine it would be traumatic. I know you had that. You had thinning in your hair, and so what was that like?
Yeah. By the way, you have a great head of hair, Dr. Jockers.
Thank you.
Great
Thank you.
job.
My grandfather on my mother's side was bald when he was 20 years old.
Wow.
So genetically, it would make it out like I would be at risk for that. But I always had really, really thick hair, so it must have passed beyond me. My younger brother, has some thinning in his hair, so I guess it got him.
Yeah, that's great. And lucky, you're lucky, unlike some of the rest of us. So
Yeah.
I was 20 years old. I was a college student, happy go lucky, confident guy. I was a college athlete playing soccer. And my goal was to stay confident, get good grades, and get a girlfriend. But
Like
nature,
most of the
God,
world. There you go.
yeah, right? And be popular, right? But God, nature had other plans, the universe. And what I found is that one evening, when I was 21, I was shampooing my hair and I looked down in my hands, and I'll never forget this moment. It was full of my beautiful black hair. And I'm going, what in the world is going on? And my level of stress went from a 4 to an 11 in 1 minute because there was so much hair that was falling out. And this continued for a few months. And it really got me into an identity crisis of trying to see why is this happening. The two common things that just kept running through my head, thoughts, were is this is not fair, and why is this happening to me? I've done nothing wrong. I've been a good person. Why is this happening to me? And then I started exploring if this is in my family, the point that you made. And what I found is on my dad's side, they had excellent, great, thick hair. But on my mother's side, all three of my uncles, my mom's brothers, were bald, and the third one, two were bald, and the third one is going bald. And I say, oh my God, my mom gave me this, right? So I blame my mom for many, many years. But obviously, I went into freak out mode and I had to go find solutions. So I tried everything you would typically do at that age: the biotin supplements, the shampoos, the holistic oils, the onion juice, the minoxidils, the yogurt on my scalp, like anything I could find, herbal remedies or even scientific remedies, I tried outside of taking pharmaceuticals that early. But this progressed over time. My grandma told me that, hey, if you shave your head, your hair comes back thicker and fuller. So I ended up shaving my head 3 times. I was so desperate. And in my early 20s, my head shape isn't good, I found out. So I don't look good when I shave my head. But I was so desperate. And at the age of 25, I went to a hair transplant doc in Denver, Colorado, and I said, hey, put me out of my misery. Just give me a hair transplant. I'm just tired of waking up with so many hairs on my pillow. And really good, compassionate doc. And she said to me, you have female pattern hair thinning. You don't have male pattern, you have female pattern, which is, it's kind of diffuse, but it's not completely gone in any area. So I can't do a hair transplant because that would cause a shock loss to hair follicles around the follicles that I'm transplanting, which would lead you to lose more hair. And so I didn't do that. But after a week of struggling some more, I got on a pharmaceutical that she said might help, but had some side effects. So I did that for 10 years. And then after that, I started a podcast and I started researching what I could do. And I went around the world to interview some of the top doctors. I went to hair conferences in Thailand to really understand the biology behind hair thinning and what the top experts were doing. And what I found, Dr. Jockers, and this is the biggest takeaway from this interview that I want to impart for everybody listening, is that with the hair in particular, a one approach, like we've all tried a hair supplement or a hair serum, and it's maybe kind of worked and maybe not worked for most people. What I found is if you can combine 3 or 4 or 5 things at once together at the same time that combine and go after all or as many root causes as possible, that gives you the best chance from a product standpoint. Now, you still have to work with the underlying conditions with yourself or very integrative practitioners that are well versed in their sphere. But from a going after the major root causes, you have to do 3 or 4 things together, and hopefully each of those products goes after the root causes. So that's how this was born, because I tried this on myself and it worked really well. And then I enrolled a few friends, 2 female and 2 male, and they had great results too. And that's when I said we should bring this to the market because this is differentiated and it's new.
Yeah, for sure. And so what are some of the main root causes? How does inflammation tie in?
Yeah.
A lot of people associate stress. And then let's talk about nutrient deficiencies as well. Are there any nutrients that are associated with good hair?
Yeah, love that. Let's start with stress. So there's 2 types of stress. There is the acute stress when you get maybe a surgery, physical or psychological impact to your life, and COVID is included in this. And COVID also ties into inflammation because that had a huge inflammation storm in your body. But anytime you have a major change in your body, even giving birth for women, your body says, hey, something's off, I'm dying, we got to protect the core organs. So it pulls all of the critical minerals and resources away from your hair because that's expendable at the end of the day, and it brings it towards the core organs. When that happens, a lot of your hair shifts from the growth phase into the resting phase, and so it must fall out. I've had friends that got COVID that were losing fistfuls of hair, and they were terrified that they would have to shave their scalp and have to wear a wig. It was really, really bad. And so this is typical when you go through any major trigger in your life. So that is the acute stress part. The chronic stress, which a lot of us have, can also cause hair thinning, but it's more along the lines of telogen effluvium, which is you're just losing hair every single day. There's not a big loss, it's not a shock loss, but it's just constant loss every single day. And a lot of other telogen effluvium root causes will do that as well. So The beauty is you can reverse this if you can fix the underlying conditions with telogen effluvium. But stress, again, chronic stress will cause that kind of hair thinning. I've had friends that some in LA and some in other big cities, but a friend of mine, Ashley, called me and said, "Hey, I'm losing a lot of hair suddenly. I don't know what's going on." And I asked her, "What's changed?" She goes, "Well, my coworker just left 3 months ago, and I'm having to do double duty, and I'm really stressed." Easy cause to diagnose for me, not for her, because she's in the middle of it. But once you fix that, the hair comes back, and she doesn't even talk about it anymore. So that's the stress aspect. Now we can talk about inflammation, I think, which the summit is about, and you love talking about this topic, and you're so knowledgeable about this. So when we talk about the main root cause of hair thinning in men and women, which is hormonal, scientists have found that there is some microinflammation in the scalp, even as that's going on, because typically it's not been associated with inflammation. But they're finding that there's microinflammation of the scalp. When they do biopsies of balding scalps, for men at least, they see more inflammation in bald areas versus areas that are not bald. And so there's a link. We don't know how defined it is or how strong it is, but there's a link between even the most common forms of hair loss and inflammation. Then we get into the other types of inflammation where your own immune system is attacking your hair follicles with a condition known as alopecia areata, which maybe 5 or 10% of women in particular might get an immune condition. And there's more than just alopecia areata, but this is one of the more common ones, where you get like round circles where your immune system is attacking areas of your scalp, and you get these shiny circles, like a quarter-sized circle, on your scalp, and your hair is completely gone. And it may stay that way for years, and it may just come back. So luckily, even with that kind of condition, we're seeing that in a lot of cases, the follicle is not lost. In some cases, it might be, but for most part, we're seeing that you can reverse that. It's challenging, but it can be reversed. And then there's the scarring alopecias that are even a very, very small percentage, like frontal fibrosing alopecia and lupus and others, which also have a inflammation-related component. But in that case, there's actual scarring going on of the hair follicle, which leads to a complete shutdown and loss of hair. You cannot grow hair once that hair follicle is scarred over. So that's the inflammation link. But luckily, direct inflammation, such as alopecia areata or some of the other conditions that I talked about, is a very small percentage of hair loss in men and women. It seems to be a little bit more in women, but certainly much lesser in men.
Yeah. Yep. And is that autoimmune mediated, or is it? I know there's autoimmune conditions where the body's attacking that hair follicle.
Yes, absolutely. For alopecia areata, that is autoimmune condition. So your body's actively attacking your hair follicles, thinking it's an invader. And so again, working with an expert to get your immune system under control. We've got in our supplement, we've got some very good ingredients like vitamin D. We've got selenium. We've got curcumin that help balance some of the inflammation. But of course, in that condition, we recommend you work with a dermatologist or an integrative doctor to get that under control, because that is, you want to get ahead of that as quickly as possible. And that also is not one of the main root causes. It's a small root cause. So we don't typically deal with that type, but we deal with a lot of the other root causes of hair loss.
Yeah. And you mentioned several nutrients there. You mentioned vitamin D, you mentioned selenium, obviously good for the immune system. Zinc would be another really critical one for the immune system. What are some of the key nutrients you're seeing associated with good hair growth?
Yeah, this is a great question, Dr. Jockers. There's the big five with vitamins and minerals for hair growth. So the big five are vitamin D3, very, very important. We got zinc, we got iron, we got folate, and we got B12. So these are the big five. You must be in the middle of the range or even a little bit higher. That's okay. But if you're in the low end of the range with vitamin D, you're in trouble. And so that's the other thing, is you want to get tested for these. Then we've got selenium, that's important for thyroid health. Iodine, that's important for thyroid health. We've also got vitamin B6 that helps create more blood vessels, and also blood cells. So these are some more additional ones. Vitamin A is a good one. The interesting part is some of these nutrients, you have to be very, very careful. You want to be in the middle of the range for vitamin A, iron, and selenium, because having too little of these will cause hair thinning, but also having too much of these will cause hair thinning. So you really want to be careful with some of these. And if you're actively losing hair, then there's a test you can do, or you can get tested with your doc. At least test for these to make sure you're in the middle of the range.
Yeah, yeah, that's so key. Some of those are really key for the immune system, keeping inflammation under control, like vitamin D. A lot of research on that. Zinc, really important for proper hormone production, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. Also really good, really key for balancing the immune system. So you don't have a hyperactive immune system, but also you don't have a hypoactive immune system where you could have more infections, things like that. So those are key nutrients. B vitamins, really key for homocysteine metabolism, for red blood cell development. So these are some of the most common deficiencies I see across the board, or subclinical deficiencies where people are low in them, but they're not actually being flagged on your traditional labs, right? So
Right.
most doctors aren't actually seeing that, and they're just telling, just prescribing medications, but not actually addressing these things. And so we'll see them in functional medicine, functional nutrition pretty commonly. So I think that's really important that you brought that up. Now, let's transition to gray hair and premature graying. My audience has a lot of questions about that as well. What are some of the root cause factors with gray hair, and particular premature graying as well?
Yeah, totally. So with premature graying, there's a variety of factors that can cause it, such as you having chronic conditions, or you're smoking, you're drinking, you're around pollution too much, you have very high stress loads. In fact, there are some interesting anecdotes in literature about, getting an advanced degree causes premature hair graying because presumably you're stressed when you're, working late nights for your PhD or whatnot. Being taller than average can lead to more premature graying, which surprisingly we don't know why. And so those are some of the root causes, but chronic conditions inflammation seem to be root causes behind early premature graying. But then when we get to regular graying, there's many root causes. The number one root cause probably is not probably, but according to science, is excess hydrogen peroxide buildup. And so in every cell of our body, we've got mitochondria that's producing energy. And unfortunately, that creates these free radicals. The process of creating energy creates the free radicals that damage the factory that's creating the energy itself. It's very ironic, but that's how the human body works. And so this creates the free radicals. The free radicals get converted to hydrogen peroxide, and then there's one more conversion using antioxidants that will convert them into water. But a lot of times what happens as we get older is the hydrogen peroxide inside the cell starts to build up, and the antioxidant level starts to go down. This leads to a double whammy because now there's more hydrogen peroxide, and ultimately that damages the ability of the melanin cells to create more pigment into your scalp. And so that is one of the major reasons why people go gray. But there's also other reasons. Like I said, if you are smoking, if you're drinking, if you're getting the environmental pollutants in your body, that's going to exacerbate the gray hairs. If you have high levels of stress, same thing there. If you have high homocysteine levels, that can also cause graying early. So those are some of the main root causes.
Basically, oxidative stress, which is kind of like internal rusting. It's like when you take a bite out of an apple and you leave it exposed to air and oxygen, you start to see that apple start to brown. This is what's happening in all of our bodies, all of our mitochondria at all times. Now, a healthy person that's practicing healthy lifestyle principles like I teach, they are getting rid of a lot of these oxidized mitochondria and regenerating new, healthy, stress-resilient mitochondria. But, we haven't been able to figure out how to stop aging, right? We can slow it down, but we haven't been able to figure out how to stop aging. It's just a natural part of the life that we live and, how God created us. And so we want to slow that process down, which could slow down graying. But, we've yet to see somebody actually not gray, right? From what I understand, at some point in their life.
Correct. And gray is more challenging than hair growth, interestingly, because you have these stem cells that are melanocyte stem cells. They're different from the hair growth stem cells. And this niche just runs out quicker than the hair growth stem cells. And once the niche is gone, and anytime a new follicle comes in after the hair cycle is completed, there's a new follicle that gets generated. The growth stem cells and the melanocyte stem cells talk and say, okay, we got to give them pigment and we got to support the growth. But unfortunately, if the melanocyte stem cells are out, they cannot produce more melanocytes, which then cannot produce more pigment. So we have yet to see, again, you can, as you said, we can slow it down for now, but it's hard to reverse grays at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense from an ancestral survival perspective. Having color in our hair really doesn't offer us survival advantages. Now, possibly reproductive benefits because we look more attractive,
Yeah.
but not survival advantages. And as we get older, we lose, at least for women, women lose their fertility anyways. Men typically have already, been through their highest fertile stages anyways. Whereas, with hair on our head, there's some level of survival advantage because it keeps us warm, right? It protects protects heat from leaving our head, which can help us have more resilience in cold weather.
Yeah. Now, the one question I get is how much grays can I reverse, if at all? And what we have found working with our clients, because we sell a whole system that helps reverse gray hairs from the inside and the outside. So the best approach if you're going to do this is go after all the root causes of gray hairs using trusted products. But also what I would recommend is doing it topically with a serum on spot applications to areas where you need it, but also using something internally like a supplement that also targets the root causes behind hair graying. And then the question is, well, how much could I go back? And what I recommend and what I've seen when working with clients is that about if you're less than 30% gray, then you can have some good results. Are you going to go back to full dark hair? No. This is just, we're fighting biology here. So you can certainly delay a lot of new grays, but you can also reverse some significant amount of grays where you will see a benefit, where you'll feel younger, where you'll feel better by yourself when you look in the mirror. You'll feel like yourself some more. So that's what we can do with these products.
Yeah, that's good to know. Now, how about hair thinning? What is the best approach to helping slow down or stop hair thinning?
Yeah, so you want to act early with hair thinning because, like I said, with the hormonal aspect or DHT impact of hair thinning, if you don't do anything for a while, it could lead to permanent hair loss, which we don't want to do for anybody. And so the best approach, like I was discussing, is you want to do many things together. And that is how the Fully Vital system came about, is we said how many things could be stacked together and make it worth your while to do. So we've got 4 different methods that we use in the Fully Vital hair growth system. We've got a supplement that targets about 6 root causes of hair thinning. It's got all the nutrients that we discussed that Dr. Jockers and I were talking about just a while ago, but also addresses inflammation, it addresses antioxidative stress, it addresses nutrients. Circulation's a very big one that we didn't really get to talk about, but getting enough blood flow and nutrients to go to your scalp is very, very important as well.
Well, those B vitamins are really key for that, right? When we're B vitamin deficient, we don't develop mature blood cells that can carry a lot of oxygen and nutrients to cells. And we also will have elevated homocysteine, which is an inflammatory agent that damages the endothelial lining of our blood vessels, which increases our risk of Alzheimer's, dementia, stroke, things like that, but also I would imagine can affect hair growth as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got B6, B7, B9, and B12 because we understand how important B vitamins are. So that's the supplement.
B7, most people haven't heard of B7. That's going to be biotin. You've probably heard the term biotin, but not actually labeled as B7.
Right.
But that's one of the most marketed nutrients for hair growth.
And in fact, if you look at the scientific literature, it's not all that impressive in growing hair. And so anybody that says it's got biotin and leading with biotin probably doesn't know what they're talking about for the most part with hair. They're not an expert on hair. So coming back to the question, this is the hair growth supplement. It's called Enhance Hair. We highly recommend you start with this because it helps you internally get all the ingredients and cover all the root causes of gray hairs. Then the next approach would be using a serum. So you want to apply something topically to your scalp that also addresses the root causes behind hair thinning on the scalp where it's happening. And so what are the ingredients in here, or what do they do? Again, balance the DHT levels, increase circulation, reduce or manage the inflammation on the scalp, prevent antioxidative stress or oxidative stress. And so making sure we're addressing as much as possible with the hair serum. The benefit of our hair serum is that it's very, very lightweight. So if you apply it, you don't have to wash it off. You can just go about your day. And then the other 2 things that are very interesting, Dr. Jockers, is we recommend using a dermaroller with the hair growth system because scientific research has found that just doing nothing else but using a dermal roller for hair has grown 15% net new hairs, or regrown 15% hairs, which is incredible when you think about 15% is a big amount. And so that's why we've added it to the
So
protocol.
how do you use it? You just kind of roll it onto different parts
Yeah,
of your
yeah.
scalp.
You roll it back and forth 6 to 8 times, and then you go diagonal 6 to 8 times, and then you go sideways 6 to 8 times. So it's quite simple, it's quite easy. And the reason we prefer a derma roller is because we see a lot more people using it. There's some people that might say, oh, a derma stamp or something else is better. But it's the compliance is very, very low on those. And so a derma roller is quick, it's efficient, it's easy, you can do it. We recommend doing it anywhere from 1 to 2 times a week. And our derma roller does not hurt. The needle length is low. And so what it does, it activates your growth factors on your scalp. It remodels your collagen, elastin. It just makes your scalp more youthful and younger.
Is
And
that because of the increased circulation? That's what I would imagine would happen
yeah,
when you get in there, kind of massaging. It's like a self massage, scalp massage, and that's going to increase circulation up in that area.
absolutely increases circulation. The other, that's very important. By the way, a lot of our products, all of our products, focus on circulation as one of the key root causes behind hair thinning. So that's very, very important. The dermal roller is very good for that. In addition, as I was mentioning, it's remodeling your collagen and elastin. And why is that important? Because as we start to get older and see hair thinning, the collagen fibers start to get like jumbled up on your scalp. And scientists or researchers think that prevents the normal growth of hair in your scalp. What people have found is when you have a scar, like a burn scar or other scars, you lose the ability to grow hairs a lot of times. And if you just microneedle on the scar for a few times, you will see new hairs growing again, which is very incredible. And so microneedling with that collagen remodeling is also helping allow for a better environment for hair growth. So that is number 3 on the list. And number 4 is simple. It's a hairbrush that you use every single day. We've got a bamboo wood brush. No plastics. We recommend brushing your hair 100 times a day to 200 times a day, and more so scalp than hair, because what we want is stimulation of the scalp, like a massage, to bring the circulation up, as you were mentioning, to bring the nutrients in and really give you thicker, fuller hair. So we want to do that as much as possible. The other benefit of using a brush is that it kind of takes the sebum and the oils in your scalp and then redistributes them on your hair strands, which is very important because as we get older, our hair gets drier, especially for women, and it breaks off more easily because there's not enough moisture traveling down the hair strand. And so that helps with shinier hair, but also healthier hair that doesn't break as much. And it brings more circulation. So a lot of things that we do go back to circulation. So that is why these 4 products together, we believe are the strongest natural hair growth system that you will find on the market. Plus, to help people really get the best out of it, we offer a 4-month money back guarantee because I recognize that hair growth takes about 90 days, and most other companies on the market will give you a 30-day money back guarantee. Like, there is no way you're going to see anything in 30 days. It's not possible. And so that is why we give you a 4-month money back guarantee to make sure you get the results. And if you don't love your results, if you don't like them, we don't even ask you if you're compliant. We will refund you your money.
Yeah, and it is a process. Obviously, you got to be committed to it, but it doesn't take long. And the self massage techniques feel good, right?
Yeah.
And they actually help improve your mood because actually scalp massage has been shown to help actually increase endorphin release, which helps improve mood, helps improve symptoms of depression, anxiety, things like that. So you actually feel better when you're doing it.
Yeah. When I was doing the protocol on myself, I didn't know, what items I needed. I was doing inversions off the side of my bed for 15 minutes a day, twice a day. I was applying actual coffee to my scalp using a cotton swab because I didn't know where to get topical caffeine. So it was just dripping down my face, and my counter was black from all the caffeine dropping.
And that's interesting that topical caffeine helps enhance hair follicle growth.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It helps block the androgens on your scalp. So the repressive effects or suppressive effects of DHT, it counteracts that. So your hair follicles have some breathing room to grow, and it somehow also energizes them. So good benefits for caffeine. We get this question of how much am I going to stay awake if I apply this at night? No, it's very small amounts of caffeine that will energize your hair, but also allow you to have a restful sleep.
Okay, good to know. Good to know.
Yeah.
Yep, great. Well, sounds really good. Guys, you can check it out. Fullyvital.com is the website to go to check out Faraz's products and his 4-step system, fullyvital.com. And you guys, like you said, you had that 120-day money-back guarantee. So you really have there's no risk in trying it. It either works or it doesn't. You can get your money back.
Yeah. And what I'd like to offer is a 15% discount for anybody listening to this. Just put in the code Dr. Jockers, DR Jockers, one word, and you'll get 15% off your purchase. And like I said, we have a 120-day money-back guarantee. I myself struggled with hair thinning for 20 years. I blame my mother for it for a long time. But once I found my hair, I found ways to grow my hair back. I forgave my mother and I love her. And I'm sorry. I was sorry for blaming her for all these years for this trauma that she gave me. But again, it was all about the search for confidence. And once I got the hair back, it really gave me back my confidence, and that transformed my life in more ways than one. I was walking around the house, just anytime I would see a mirror, I would smile. And I don't know why I was doing this. I would just smile at myself because of all the negative association I've had with my hair for so long.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing your story and these great products at fullyvital.com. Faraz, thanks for all the great work you're doing, all the great research. And guys, again, check it out, fullyvital.com. Use that coupon code Dr. Jockers, DRJOCKERS at checkout to save 15% off if you want to try it out. And yeah, this is great. Any last words of inspiration for our audience here, Faraz?
Yeah, I think what I would love to say is that I kept asking myself the question of why is this happening to me? I have done nothing wrong. And why is my body betraying me in a way? And what I learned over time is that our bodies are not betraying us. They're meant to heal. God made us to heal. And some things sometimes gets in the way. And as long as you're able to address the root causes, your body is meant to grow. Nature is meant to grow. Like in the springtime, when you go outside, everything's growing. That's how the Dominion is. And so what I would like to encourage you or listeners that have had limited success, that have had frustrations in the past where things haven't worked and they're not sure if anything's going to work, or they have to shave their scalp or shave their head and wear a wig, please give this a try. I understand what you're feeling. I've been there for 20 years, and that is why we created the system. And that is the reason I'm offering you 4-month money back guarantee, because I know how painful hair loss is, and I want to make sure that you can live your best life and thrive. And this is not a problem. Again, we have plenty of insecurities as humans in meat suits. So I want to make sure that hair loss is not one of them.
Yeah. Thanks again, Faraz, for all your great work, guys. Check it out, fullyvital.com. We'll see you on a future interview. Be blessed, everybody.
Thank you, Dr.